Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Bonsoir et bienvenue tout le monde. I'm Anita Manley, and I will be your moderator for this evening. I am also the Vice Chair of the Client Advisory Council, who in conjunction with the Family Advisory Council is presenting this evening's Conversations at the Royal. Me and my care, our journey together. Yeah, I had to look. I would like to introduce our speakers tonight. Glenda O'Hara at the end here, and her daughters Laura and Kate. And then we have Kieran Menard and his mother Heather. Also, we have the chair of the Client Advisory Council, Debbie McFarlane, the chair of the Family Advisory Council, Micheline Labrie, our liaison of Client and Family Relations here at the Royal, Jacqueline DeRocher. I would also like to introduce Dr. Raj Batla, our psychiatrist in chief and chief of staff, and invite Dr. Batla up to say a few words of introduction.
So I have the pleasure of just welcoming you to the Royal. This is a series of events that are put on by the Royal, public lectures. We cover a wide variety of things. We've done this lecture with the Client Advisory Council, and I think, is this the first joint one? This is the first one with the Family Advisory Council as well, so that's kind of exciting. A very important lecture, because at the end of the day, these topics are crucial, and it's been my pleasure over the last few years to join the council and help do some part of the Q&A at the end of the day, but certainly led by the two groups, and it will be, I'm sure, an enlightening and informative session. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and really thank you for coming. It's gorgeous outside, I get it, but this will be better. So thanks for coming.
Thanks very much, Dr. Batla. And Dr. Batla will be moderating the question and answer period after our presentations tonight. At that time, we ask that you keep your questions short and to the point. Now, to begin our presentations, let's welcome Glenda O'Hara and her daughters Laura and Kate up to speak.
42 years ago, I was standing on a stage as valedictorian at my high school graduating class, speaking of all that life has to offer us. And here I am with my principal, CFL star Russ Jackson, at that graduation night. As an Ontario Scholar, silver medalist, and scholarship recipient, I would eventually translate my skills in mathematics to a more practical Bachelor of Commerce degree and work as an accountant for more than 30 years. I was a great accountant and a well-loved coworker, but there was something hidden from everyone, even those closest to me, my family. I would get myself into impossible situations where I ended up defrauding these people that I cared so much for. This behavior made no sense to me. I was a good person. Why was this happening? The last organizations that I worked for decided to press charges, and I lived with the fear of what would happen, all alone, telling no one. My doctor had diagnosed me with depression and then bipolar disorder. Finally, perhaps an explanation for some of my dangerous behavior that had cost me my career and 2 marriages. I didn't answer my phone and often would stay in bed 2 to 3 days without talking to anyone until my mother had a family member with a key come and check on me. It became apparent that I would be taken into custody, and the fear of jail triggered me to take enough pills to put down 2 horses, as the doctor told my daughters. My family raced to my side, especially my 2 daughters, Laura and Kate. Kate was at that time working on a cruise ship and had to fly home when she arrived at a port. And my 2 girls took me home and bathed me and slept with me and started to help me be strong. I know how difficult this task was for them, as they were really so angry at me for trying to leave them, but they buried their personal feelings in order to help me. At my trial, even with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, severe depression, social phobia, and ADHD, I was sentenced to jail. During my incarceration, my extended family became surprisingly very affectionate, with every phone call ending in "I love you," and when they were able to visit in person, hugs and kisses. This changed when I got home, but the only constant was my girls. I met wonderful women in jail who made mistakes in their life, but were smart and kind and caring individuals. Some remain my friends today. Before, during, and after my incarceration, I learned that I had lost virtually all my friends at home. And to this day, this fact has been hard to come to terms with. Upon returning home, I eventually found that my family does not really give me credit for my journey to become well and sees me still as a damaged individual. My constant, as always, is my daughters. Their love and support is unconditional. I wrote a poem to describe what I felt at the time called the Steel Trio, where I describe getting my strength for recovery from my daughters and myself. While in jail, I prepared a parole plan that included coming home and getting a referral to a psychiatrist. I was unsuccessful getting parole, but I did get my referral to a psychiatrist at the Royal when I arrived home. Things finally started to fall into place for me. I had a doctor that I worked really well with, and I realized that regardless of side effects, my medication was an important part of me being well. After a while, my psychiatrist walked me over to the Women's Center at the Royal, and I was introduced to the WRAP program, Wellness Recovery Action Plan. I embraced the key concepts of the program: hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. And after the program was over, decided to train to be a facilitator. I have facilitated many 10-week sessions and get a great deal of satisfaction from the progress that participants make. Reminding myself of these concepts is always helpful to me as well. My psychiatrist also referred me to an occupational therapist. The first couple of things she did was refer me to an art group and a weekly wellness group with mainly young male participants. I thought this old accountant going to an art group was crazy, but I loved it. I painted, arranged flowers, played drums, and read poetry, among other things. In my group, I found that I learned so much from the young guys around the table and our wonderful social workers' kind and gentle approach. I have taken every program and group that was offered, and even when I thought they were not a good fit for me, I've always found something that I can use in my road to recovery. I've taken mindfulness, peer support, photography, chronic pain, and mental health first aid, and attended many conversations at the Royal with topics of interest to me. Another important step that I have taken is to join the Client Advisory Council as the forensics rep. Recently, I've become the editor of the Client's Voice. I make a conscious effort to expand my volunteering to cover 3 of my areas of interest: mental illness, the arts, and social issues. My daughters have always supported my activities and are always interested in what I'm doing, and we talk on a daily basis. One of the biggest problems for clients of the forensics program at the Royal is the double stigma of having mental illness as well as having had contact with the criminal justice system. Revealing my mental illness and legal issues has been difficult, and I have certainly shied away from it in the past. As I start to reveal myself, I've been met with very positive responses, so it is becoming easier as time goes by. It has never been difficult with my daughters. They accept my past, applaud my present, and look forward to the future with me. Suffering with the stigma of having a mental illness can be a heavy burden, but today, while Googling, I stumbled across an amazing list of people that have lived with bipolar disorder and realized that I am in very good company. Joy is finally returning to my life. I'm reading books again and feeling my mood lift significantly when I listen to music. One of my greatest joys is spending time with my daughters, having them for dinners, sleepovers, and binge-watching TV shows. I had the honor of witnessing my 7-month-old granddaughter's birth recently. Life is really good. I am more than a woman living with a mental illness and a record. I am a good mother, grandmother, daughter, sister, and friend. I'm a volunteer, a facilitator, an editor, and a poet, and someone who cares about the world we live in. It takes a village to raise a child, just as it has taken a group of professionals at the Royal and my daughters to lead me to wellness and a life full of hope. One of my favorite songs, Coldplay's Fix You, has the line, "Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones." The people in my life are my lights, my daughters, my granddaughter, and my support people at the Royal. My life has gone full circle. Just as I did 42 years ago, I stand before you speaking of all that life has to offer us. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Glenda's oldest daughter, Laura. I am the feisty daughter. My mother tells the story of dropping me off at nursery school when I was 2 or 3, and I looked back at her as if to say, "Aren't you gone yet?" No separation anxiety whatsoever. There does come a time when you need your mom. When she was in jail, I found out I was pregnant. I had to go through the delivery of my son without my mother, which was very hard. My son was born with autosomal recessive polycystic kidney disease and died 2 months later. My mother was not with me then either. She was brought to Roger's house for a couple hours by 2 guards. She would meet my son and then say goodbye. I was so thankful that she was able to be with me when I delivered my daughter this year. It was just her and I and the medical staff when my daughter Leah was born, and my mom got to cut the cord. A few years before, when we got the call that my mother had taken an overdose, I cannot explain the thoughts and emotions that go through your mind with news like that. We packed her up and we brought her home. I bathed her and went with her on the scary trip to turn herself in at the police station. When my mom came home 13 months later, the real battle began. She was on her own except for my sister and I. Friends had disappeared and our extended family did not seem to support her recovery. Many are not comfortable learning about mental illness, especially when it is combined with a criminal record. People think that things you struggle with are character flaws and that you are lazy, self-centered, or lack ambition. I know from being with my mom all my life that it can be a real struggle just to get out of bed in the morning. My mom was referred to a great psychiatrist at the Royal and in time started taking groups that were very helpful to her. The role that I took was to listen to her journey, to learn along with her what she needed to do to become well. She has become very active with volunteering, and I am very proud of all of her efforts. My mother has also been supportive to me and my sister. She has the insight to help my sister with her anxiety, and she has been my biggest supporter in recovering from the trauma of the loss of my son. Not everyone thought it was necessary for me to attend a grieving workshop at Roger's house recently, but my mother did. After 3 years, it was a necessary process. She wanted to know how every meeting went and looked after my daughter for me to allow me to go. My sister, my mom, and I sometimes feel like outsiders in our family, but we have each other. Sometimes you don't need a lot of supporters, just the right supporters, and we are a very strong trio.
My name is Kate O'Hara, and I am Glenda's youngest daughter. When I was about 2 or 3 months old, I couldn't keep any food down, and my breathing became labored. My mother kept bringing me to the doctor's office, but they couldn't find anything wrong. Finally, they decided to send me for an x-ray, and as the doctor explained the results to my mother and the resident, he turned to the student doctor and said, "That is why you always listen to the mother." I had a diaphragmatic hernia and my intestines had moved into my chest cavity and collapsed one of my lungs. Later, after being rushed to CHEO for surgery, as I waited in the emergency room with an oxygen mask on my face, my mom sang, "You are my sunshine" to me, and I smiled through the mask at her. That song became a theme song for us. My parents were told that I would never become an athlete, but I went on to become a competitive dancer, and I danced on cruise ships for 6 years. For about 14 years, my mother chauffeured me to dance classes, rehearsals, and competitions. She even took a second job working in a bookstore on nights and weekends to help pay for my costumes and choreography. She was such a support to me my whole life. How could I not support her later when she needed me? Growing up, there were signs that my mother was struggling with her mental health, taking to her bed, locking herself in the bathroom or the closet. By the time I finished high school and left to work on cruise ships, things seemed to have improved. With her having a diagnosis and medication, I hoped that it would help her. The first few years when I returned home between dance contracts, my mother seemed to be doing very well, separated and working hard on her own. Those first few years, she continued to support me, having me stay with her and helping me through my own anxiety-ridden periods. When I got the call that my mother had attempted suicide because I was at sea, it seemed to take forever to be by her side. I went home with her and slept with her and comforted her as she was terrified to go to jail. Then I had to go back to work and I had to leave her with my sister and my other family members for the next part of her journey. I wrote her often and visited her as much as I could. When I arrived home from my last contract in the middle of my own mental health crisis, and my mother was on her road to recovery at the Royal, we supported each other because we have both suffered losses of friends and the support of family members due to our mental illnesses. Along with my sister, we may not be a large support group, but we are strong. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Grey's Anatomy, but Meredith had a friend called Christina that she called her person. Well, my mom is my person, and I would like to think that I am hers as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies, for your hopeful, inspiring, and very touching stories. Thanks especially to Laura and Kate for being supportive of your mom. And Laura, you even left your baby Leah at home tonight to be here, and I understand it's her 7-month birthday today. So thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite Kieran Menard and his mother Heather up to share their stories.
Good evening. I'm Kieran Menard, and I'm here as someone who has fought hard to find my way out of a dark place. If I leave you with one message today, it's this. You may feel it's dark all around you now, and that it's always going to be dark, but take it from someone who knows. If you work hard on yourself and you ask for help and you receive it, you will find the light. Almost 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed there would be a light at the end of this darkness. I was a shell of my former self for so long, and it's all somewhat of a blur. But this I do know. Back when I was 12, my life was fairly normal. I had a pretty good handle on things. I was pulling high grades. All was right in my life. Then my mom got cancer, and then it went into remission, and then it came back, but this time it's terminal. This and a few other life events happened around the same time really affected me. In a matter of weeks, I found myself having to act and deal with things beyond that any kid that age should have to deal with. On top of all of this, I had to change schools to make new friends while adjusting to a whole new setting, all when my life was just such a huge challenge. This is pretty tough for a kid to go through, and I started to drown. My grades fell. I put up a good front, all while pretending everything was okay. And even after talking with the teacher who advised me to tell my parents how I was feeling, things continued to get worse. There comes a point in every illness where you feel that you can cope and it's best to keep to oneself. This is not, unfortunately, the best way to deal with the issues at hand. I truly feel it is important to talk to someone that you trust, whether it be a parent, sibling, or a close friend. There is a time in an illness that one has to recognize that sometimes you need tools that you don't have, and that you need to talk to someone. At this point in my recovery, it was past the point when I could function doing daily routines. This is when I talked to my guidance counselor as well as my mother. My best friend saw the changes in me, and one who actually made me get the help that I needed. After talking with my mom, I realized I needed help, the kind of help I couldn't give myself, the kind that even my mom can give me. I made an appointment with my family doctor who put me on antidepressant. 4 months later, another type. 4 months after that, 2 different types. 4 months after that, another change in medication. During this time, over about a year or so, I was starting to hear sounds that were mostly gibberish. I was also thinking about suicide. You can say that I hit my all-time low. The drugs didn't do anything for me, they just made me feel horrible. And at that point, I lost complete hope for myself. That's when I was first admitted to CHEO. I was there for about 3 weeks. While I was there, I really hoped they could give me a miracle drug and I would be better. They tried to stabilize me, and after 3 weeks, still wasn't stable. So I was transferred to the Royal. I was 17 at the time. I was at the Royal for almost 9 months. At the beginning, I felt trapped, but I knew I had to be there. I was so sick, struggling with thoughts of suicide, hearing voices, you name it. It's all a bit of a blur back because soon after I was admitted, I started electroconvulsive therapy, also known as shock therapy, followed by other intense treatments. The mental health system is a system that even the sane would have trouble following. When I was first introduced to the system, it was so overwhelming. It was just another stressor, and it was enough to push me over the edge. I was lucky enough to have my family for the needed support that was enough to get me through. I love hockey and was playing house league hockey at the time when I was admitted to the Royal. Because my mental illness was so severe, I couldn't get day passes to go out and actually play hockey. This is called being foreign, which means all my rights were removed, and if I were to leave the hospital, I would be returned immediately. So here I was, stuck in a mental institution, and I couldn't play hockey. Looking back now, I believe that with all my heart, this was the best decision I've ever made. The staff at the Royal really care about you. That you can tell they really love their jobs. As time progressed, the staff in both the youth unit taught me strategies for coping, strategies that work. One strategy I use often is find ways to divert my attention. For example, listening to music. This really helps. I also play piano and recently started taking violin lessons again, as they help divert my attention when I need to. Another way I found a way to manage during difficult times is spend time with my dog Lace and my parrot Celeste. Though I know I'm gonna have good and bad days. The thing is, the Royal gave me the safe environment I needed, where I could just be, and learn how to deal with all that life has thrown at me. Along with the Royal, it is absolutely vital to have a support system in place during and after hospitalization. Support system in my case was my family and close friends, specifically my mother. She is my rock, and if I didn't have her or anyone else, I would definitely not be where I am today. I have depression and schizophrenia, and whereas I couldn't see the light at the end of the dark tunnel, I know now there is light. I have learned to deal with the fact that life isn't always going to be easy, but I also know that it's not always going to be hard. And I know that you don't get something for nothing, and it takes a lot of hard work. Today, I'm 20 years old and going into my 3rd year at Carleton University, studying biochemistry, a program that I absolutely love. My dream is to get my master's and maybe even my doctorate so that I can teach one day. I find it's really important to have goals and ambition. I have been fortunate to have received bursaries for achieving academic standings for doing something that I absolutely love. I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight to this conversation at the Royal. I would like to point out that even though it's a long journey and difficult one at times, the support that someone can get means all the difference in their lives. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Heather, Kieran's mom. I'd like to share with you a journey that has had a profound effect on our whole family. Mental illness does not only cause changes for those who have it, but also everyone involved in their lives. It was heartbreaking to see him suffer and to be at such a low point in his life that he felt there was no hope. To feel as a mother so helpless, to make him feel that there was light, that life would get better, is the most difficult task I ever had. We are fortunate in that we had the support of a whole medical team of professionals to assist us on this journey. At times, even if with their support, it felt like life was very solitary. You have empathy for your child going through the process, but at times it's really difficult as you're looking in on something you don't experience and tries really hard to deal with because you don't really have a total grasp of what they're going through. Kieran, when admitted to the youth program at the Royal, was at the point of being a danger to himself. The team of healthcare providers made it a safe place for him to not only get assistance that he needed, but also accept and deal with having mental issues that will be with him for his whole life. The youth program made it safe and accepted to share and learn how to cope with the roller coaster of not only the illness, but acceptance of knowing that there is not a quick fix. There's no magic pill. Youth allowed and encouraged those in the program to still be young people and to work on learning skills, to still enjoy life and make it safe to be just who they are and not be defined only by their illness. I don't think Kieran could have come through this without the support of the youth program. From cooking classes to outings, music programs, classroom instruction, and the support and staff and the availability of them, not only to assist Kieran, but also our family on the journey back to stability. They facilitated acceptance of what is, but most importantly, with the vision of learning to cope with mental illness. Today, we are in a better place, as Kieran has developed tools that allow him not only to engage in life, but still pursue his dreams and his goals. He has continued his studies, and at the same time has had to make allowances, but still goes on knowing that at times he will have setbacks, but they don't define him. Instead, he works through those and comes out the other side. He has had to deal with all of this, as well as dealing with my health issues. We made a deal that neither one of us would give up and be there to support each other. I feel so blessed and proud. He has done exactly that and has been a pillar of strength for me. The process has been long, but the progress has been life-saving for Kieran. He continues to always strive to be the very best he can with families, friends, and academically. A testament not only to his commitment to recover, but also those professionals along the way who made his journey a mutual goal. We were fortunate to have a support network of friends and extended family who stood by him without judgment. We know the journey is lifelong, but we also know that with support from the team at the Royal, who will always be there to help assist in the journey, and for that we are grateful beyond words. Thank you.